Working Class on DeerCast. I believe this is episode 55. So what's up? Garett Goodwin here via Zoom.
Going on?
We're trying to get you in studio, but I think you've probably exhausted all your time off work and probably any free time with hunting as hard as you've been hunting.
Yeah, I owe my boss probably quite a bit of venison for the amount of time as I've been taking off lately.
So work is pretty flexible, I'm assuming. Did he give you more than you're allowed type of thing? Kind of work with you to fill tags?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I owe my boss a lot. I mean, he's pretty, it's actually him and I that work are the only ones in the store. So it's like he's by himself if I'm gone. So it's kind of takes one for the team.
Yeah, I get that. Well, you've been on before, but for people who don't know and they're wondering why the heck I'm talking to you, maybe introduce yourself, because you're quite the hustler, man, especially as of the last couple of years of hunting.
Yeah, no. I'm Garett from Michigan, born and raised. Always been racing my entire life, but also hunting, but not as full throttle, full force into the hunting as I always wanted to be, just because of racing.
Yeah.
And when the economy took a hit, budget kind of cut down on the racing. I, enjoyed always hunting, got more into archery, got my first 2 deer with a gun. And it just, it was exciting, but I wanted, more fulfillment, more, wanted to challenge myself more.
I know people are going to ask what kind of racing, and I know what kind, but I guess I don't know what it's called.
Yeah, no, there's always all sorts of different racing out there, but I run on dirt track, circle track, in the micro sprint series, in the 600 cc's. So I race Illinois, Indiana, stuff like places like that. Used to run all over the country until, our lovely economy, but
yeah, I hear that it's expensive, just like anything's expensive nowadays. But okay, so nowadays I'm going to ask you this before we go on with the podcast: racing or hunting, what's better? What do you like more right now in your life? What are you more passionate about? If you had to give one up or the other, what are you giving up?
Right now, I tell you what, I'd be hunting.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's a different, both adrenaline is, the hustle's both there. Each take a different amount of hustle, different style of hustle.
Yeah.
But you can still benefit and learn from both sides of it.
Yeah.
But you get that peace out in the woods that, it's a different sort of peace.
Right. You're not really like relaxing and getting like to really probably think about life and stuff as much racing as you are sitting in a tree somewhere. Maybe you are in a different way, but I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I'm, when I'm in a race car, it's, I'm living life. I'm, it's peaceful, but it's also, full throttle all the time. You're living on the edge, but hunting, you get that same adrenaline, when something, you shoot a deer, or just, you see deer, stuff like that. But then you have that calm and your peace, and you get to enjoy nature and what we have out in the woods.
Well, I feel like, one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on, so quickly, because you've been, man, your hustle has just been unmatched. Like, when I see people that are into hunting or basically learning to hunt, maybe haven't been bow hunting hard for a long time, there's certain people it takes a long time for them to, like, things have to click over time. And that's whether it's just to kill deer consistently. And then there's like another gear you can shift into, kind of talking and racing, that it's like killing bucks consistently. And then there's another gear you can shift into to where it's like killing bigger, more mature bucks consistently. Or, you're in Michigan and, different parts of the state or different parts of the country, wherever state you are, you kill the most mature, biggest deer you can in the area that you're hunting. And I think that's what matters most, versus like if he's 180 or 100 inches, like, that broad spectrum, you can only shoot what's there. And I know Michigan, we have a lot of listeners in Michigan. We get a lot of feedback from people in Michigan, and we ran a razz Michigan. We razz every state, to be honest, but we've had some guests on from Michigan that kind of bag on Michigan in a negative light. And then we'd have guests on from Michigan that give Michigan credit in a different light. So, and the feedback from listeners is exactly that. It's 50-50. I get, hey, Michigan's great. It's like the traditional deer hunting, deer camp stuff. And then I get the other half of those people that are like, man, Michigan sucks. No one's on deer quality management programs. Nobody thinks that way like they do in Iowa and Illinois. I want out of this state. So it's cool seeing you in Michigan working with what you got.
Yeah, I mean, you have to work with what you got, and then sometimes you have to go out of your comfort zone and learn new areas. And you don't know what's in that area if you're hunting, say, public land or I just started dabbling in a little bit of public land last year, and more this year. But then I picked up a new lease this spring. I joined on with two buddies, and I did a lot of pre-scouting during turkey season because I never actually had good property to hunt by myself.
Yeah.
For turkeys, I always had to go with my uncle and cousin, stuff like that, which is still always a blast. You always want to go with friends and family turkey hunting.
Of course.
But actually having a piece of property that you have, that you can go even by yourself, scout, shed hunt, do all that stuff, prep it. And I did a lot of pre-scouting, a lot of spring and early summer scouting just to see the deer, and just, picking my very first sheds ever this year, which, got me even more pumped for deer season.
Right.
And because, the property that I've always hunted my entire life is literally a narrow strip of 6.5 acres. And that it's just timber, but yeah, that's all I got. And I'm stuck with what I got unless, going, to public land and stuff like that. And which is fine during bow season, but the Orange Army and public land with Michigan, some people love it and I give them props. A
lot of wild cards can play in there. Yeah. A lot of random stuff.
A lot of wild cards going into that one.
I get that. But you seem like a guy that I've watched just like evolve quickly. I feel like you've shortened your learning curve down quite a bit, and that now you're consistently getting opportunities at deer at least. And obviously you're tagged out in Michigan. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
So it's just cool to see like the amount of work you put in. And I even said something to you. I'm like, dude, for how you hustle, like, okay, tag out in Michigan, but bounce down to Indiana, bounce over to Illinois, basically treat it like your race circuit. Like the amount of hustle you put in, there's big bucks in your future because you're not afraid to put in the work. Now, you just have to learn how and where to put in the work on new properties, just like anything,
Exactly. Yep.
But I think you can do that. Yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that you can do that, really. So,
and, I owe all that, that learning curve to, you guys on the podcast I've been listening to and becoming friends with for so long. Having DeerCast, reading all the articles, stuff like that. Especially, for not having that much experience on shot placement on deer, especially in archery, that DeerCast track, sometimes if we don't have a lot of movement, like when I shot my first buck, we didn't have a lot of movement first half of the afternoon. So I would just sit on DeerCast, in my saddle and just point in different spots and just see how, where to, burn that in my mind of, when the moment happens, that's going to be,
that's a good tip, actually, rather than just using DeerCast track in a oh crap situation. Like, where did I hit this deer? How am I going to trail it? Just watch it. You could use DeerCast track for entertainment is what you're doing.
I was literally using it for entertainment, just seeing like how each shot placement, like if I shot here, if I, this is where the most effective out of all the results seem to be. So just try to
Yeah.
pinpoint it to that area. And
Yeah.
then just burn that in my mind, especially when you're trying to kill some time, instead of playing Candy Crush or something on your
That's a
phone.
good idea. Yeah, that's a good idea to do it that way. I've done that in the past as well. DeerCast tracks an underutilized tool until you have to use it. And typically when you have to use it, it's not always the best scenario, but maybe it is. I don't know. I would say more time it's not the best scenario.
Yeah, I've used it, pretty frequently in the last probably year or two. But it's been very beneficial on what to do, especially for like on my last deer. I sent you a screenshot of the shot placement when I called you, and we got a game plan, and
yeah,
that's which we'll probably get more into.
Yeah, we can get right into that right now. Actually, we can talk about that buck because you filled one tag earlier, and you did a podcast on the CC Hunt Files about that deer, I believe, right? I'm losing track of everything you're shooting. And then, so you did that podcast with Clint, and then in our group, we have a big team group chat for WCB. You're sending pictures of like deer you're trying to hone in on, and you're just, dude, you're always out there hustling in one way or another. And I'm like, well, it's a matter of time, from my perspective. And then next thing I know, you called me a few days ago, right? Has it even been a week?
No, it's been today's Friday. It was Tuesday afternoon was when I went out to hunt. It was for Michigan firearm opener.
With a bow.
With a bow. Since 2018, that's the last time I've taken a firearm for deer out into the deer woods.
Nothing against it. It's just bow's a little more rewarding in the Midwest.
It's more of a challenge for me. And I just love archery a lot. I've worked in an archery shop. Now, I'm working on trying to get my own started. And I just love the sport of archery. I love hunting with a bow. It's just it's challenging, and especially being on the racing side of things, you always want to challenge yourself. And
yeah,
it's
makes sense.
It's not like you're always gonna have challenges, firearms or not. But it's just a different style of challenge, I guess.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, yeah, they all have their challenges, but also too, once you bow hunt for so long and you're doing all these sets and hanging hunts and all this stuff, you just want to commit to the bow to get the buck you want with the bow. And I think everybody listening that bow hunts gets that,
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I don't know. We don't really need to elaborate on that, but I know you're dialing in on this deer, and then you're doing hanging hunts. You're all over the place. So I guess just kind of talk about this buck, and then let's break down the story, and then basically let's catch up to where you called me 3 days ago.
Yeah. So I've been, I got some cell cams out on our lease, and I've gotten a lot of, through summer to, to this moment, I've gotten a lot of smaller bucks to, great bucks in our area, because Michigan, you have great bucks. It's just small pockets, depends on food, stuff like that.
That's very much what it seems like too, from just interacting with people who interact with us or the podcast. Like,
right. I mean, you go more northern, you have less ag in Michigan, so the deer quality is different. It just, depends on, you get those little pockets, and that's in any state really, is from what I've been learning and seeing.
For sure. But I'd agree.
I've actually never got the deer that I ended up shooting this Tuesday. I've actually never gotten him on camera, but I've seen him on the hoof when I was chasing after another. I had my eye set on another buck, and I had him on the hoof one morning, and I was like, whoa, where did he come from? And this was like first week of November, and I was like, whoa. I'm like, all right, you're I got to remember you. And I had him as close as 35 yards. He came in to my right, and he came in and bedded down after two does got out of their beds, which was really cool. And I was really hoping he was going to circle around to have a shot. And all I could see was just rack. I was like,
Mhm.
oh man, I don't get this. I've never really
Trail
seen.
cameras don't tell the entire story all the time.
No, definitely does not. And I've seen a few bucks on the hoof that I don't even have on camera. And then there's some that I've seen on camera that I'm after that I've not yet to even see on the hoof. So it's like,
Yeah. Well, I'm
no,
telling you, man, trail cameras are awesome. They're so much fun, but they don't tell the entire story. And I think they can make you miss a lot of deer because if you have a trail camera near a stand and you're like, oh, I'm not seeing this big deer, he could be on the other side of the trail or a pinch of a big buck you don't even know about. And then you don't feel like going there, but then you go there and you see one. You're like, what the heck, you know?
and to prove it and to tell a great example of that reasoning is I had one of my cell cameras on a really hot corner that come out of the timber into the ag field, and all summer long, into the right before opening season, opening day archery, I'd always get deer strolling through there to the field, coming back into the timber every day, great bucks. And all of a sudden it went cold. I was like, what? I'm like, is there anything out in the field, anything coming through? I was like, and I went in for a hunt and I noticed a big tree had fallen and like literally closed their walkway through there.
Mm-hmm.
So what they ended up doing was beating a path down on the other side of my camera and never getting in the rain into the infrared area
Yeah.
of catching them on camera. And it wasn't until I had shot my first buck off the field edge to notice, oh, well, they're coming a different way, because what used to be their path was now blocked by a huge tree. So
Yeah.
that's on the list in the spring to clean up.
That's funny. Yeah. I mean, it can just be little stuff like that, but also too, just speaking of that, I have a spot where I think I figured the deer would pinch down tighter naturally with this terrain feature that I put a camera in. And I realized a lot of the deer hug the outside of this pinch rather than the inside of it, like I thought they would. Just hard to explain just talking about it, but you'd have to see it.
Right.
And my big buck that I just shot, the first time I saw him, he skirted the very outside of that, just outside of comfortable shooting range. And I'm like,
Being on
man,
the opposite of what you thought he was gonna
I thought
hug.
he'd come in tighter to where I was. There's like an opening there and whatever. But in my head, I'm like, okay, I need to put a log over there or a little brush pile to pinch them down. That way, if it happens again, they kind of have to come around and come closer. But I'm weird like that. I don't like doing that stuff too much. If it looks unnatural, I don't like it. So
Right.
we'll
It's
see.
like putting a pop-up blind 3 days before you want to sit there for deer and you have no brush or nothing around. It's not, I don't know. It just doesn't ease your mind that it's natural.
Exactly. So in the spring, I'm going to take some equipment in there, and there's a lot of down logs that need cleaned up in this area anyway. So the ones that I think will look effective, and basically, I don't want to sit in my tree stand and look at it and be like, God, that just looks like I put it there. You know what I mean? I want it to look like it was supposed to be there.
Right.
So, anyway, I'm going to do an artificial version of what happened for this pinch point and see if I have any success with it. We'll see. I don't know.
Hey, trial and error.
Yeah. I mean, I always think about getting like round bales and putting them in certain spots, but I don't know. That feels a little weird.
You might know a farmer or two to help you out with that.
I could, but then it's like, then I got to stare at these farm round bales that I just put up out there, and it just feels weird to me. But I don't know. We'll see.
Not even part of what you have there in the environment.
I guess what would change that for me if I had an open hayfield or an open field and it was just like, it's all I have and I have to put in something, like if I had to border up a food plot to make the deer feel safe to be in this one spot, or if I had a pesky neighbor that was like an anti-hunter, I'd stack up hay bales along the whole fence, which would be hilarious. But anyway, going back to our main topic.
Right.
Yeah, the trail camera doesn't tell the whole story.
No, definitely does not. And I actually ended up having a second encounter with him this same buck, opening day eve, which would be the 14th, which was I was like, all right, I'm gonna go out the 14th
of gun season. You're saying opening day eve
of gun season for a firearm. I'm like, I'm gonna go out before stuff starts getting crazy with all the guns, popping off and starting to put pressure on all these deer.
Yeah.
And man, I didn't see nothing. And then like right at last light, I had 3 does come running in, and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden, I just see tall antlers coming chasing, and it's like dark, so it's kind of hard to tell which deer this was.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh man, all right, well, because that video that I had sent you, those 2 bucks crossing through that I sent to the group chat, I moved up way farther the next time to try to be like, okay, this seems to be, their less resistance of where they're going to travel through. So I'm like, all right, I need to get farther up there. So the next day, which would have been the night that I saw that at last light, that buck, I set up in that same area, and that's when he came in chasing those 3 does. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm gonna have to, I've already kind of wasted a lot of days here with my boss, asking days off and stuff like that, which I get vacation days. It's just I want to use them in good spots, which is great when it comes to DeerCast, because it just says if it's green, I'm like, it's
yeah. You don't mind taking a day.
I don't mind taking a day off. It's just asking my boss, hey,
hey man, it's green. Does your boss have DeerCast?
No, but I show him DeerCast a lot.
He's probably sick. He's like, I hate that app.
Oh, he's like, all right. It gets like then it was opening day at gun, and I didn't expect to go out. But I still always have my stuff in my truck, just because if something feels right or something,
you can just go.
I can just go. Because I don't have any presets stands or anything set up at the lease. So I'm always hunting out of the saddle. Everything's on the go. I tear down, set up every time. So it was probably 10 a.m. that morning, and my buddy Kyle, he sent me a picture of a buck that he shot, which was awesome. I'm like, dude, I got to get out in the woods. Like, I don't even care. Like, I got my orange with me, my bow's always with me. I said, hey boss, we busy today? No. He's like, you want to go out hunting, don't you? I'm like, well, you don't got to ask me twice.
Yeah, I'm out of here later.
Yep. I said, all right, I'm out at noon. So I got out at noon, left work, which I always keep my scent crusher bag in the truck, and then I bring it in, and I swear it's like I got the roller bag, so it's like I just roll it into work and
just live out of it.
I live out of it, so I just run cycles at work, and I change, and then I head out to, which my property is only 10-15 minutes from work, which makes it so much
even better, man. Yeah,
it just boom, I'm there. And I had an idea on where I was going to sit. I was going to sit a little bit farther in where I had than the previous night, to maybe see if they were going to come around the same time, that maybe I could catch them a little before it got too dark. And so I got in found my tree about 1:15, a little quarter after 1, got set up, and I got on my platform. I didn't even get my backpack strap around the tree, and I look up, and a 4-point starts strolling through to my west, and I have a northeast wind coming, so all the wind's to my face, so which I have a lot of thick stuff behind me. So from all the scouting and the hunting that I've done, I've seen that they've been going around all the thicker stuff. So if all my scent, if I had any, would be going into the thicker stuff. So I kind of had that, at least I was kind of banking on that.
Yeah. You're well thought out on this set.
Yep. I was like, all right. And I kept checking my wind. I was like, all right, let's, hoping, it's kind of like that whiskey wind and stuff like that we've, you guys always talked about.
Getting sketchy a little bit.
Yeah, I was like, I'm like, it kept switching on me. It kept swirling. I'm like, oh, don't be doing this.
I hate that. Nothing makes you lose confidence so fast in a sit, like your wind starting to do some shady stuff.
Like for like 10 minutes, I'm like, all right, it's good. And all of a sudden, like I'll feel it like kind of switch to the back of my neck. I was like, no, I don't like this.
Yeah.
And then it switches back. I'm like, all right, we're good. So that buck came rolling through. Didn't even know I was there. I was like, great. So I finally, once he got out, I finally got all my gear set up, set my camera arm up, GoPro, my bows up, stuff like that. And I'm just chilling there. And probably an hour goes by. And I see deer legs up in the thick stuff starting to come through. I was like, all right, what do we got here? Because they're just cruising through. We've had a couple does that have been hot that, these bucks are just cruising through here.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, if I see something hopefully is following them. So a doe came through, a little fawn button with her and another fawn. But they were just taking their old time, eating stuff off the ground. I'm like, okay, well, obviously nothing must be chasing them too crazy if they're just kind of moseying, taking their time.
Yeah.
And they, twiddled around, ate off the ground, stuff like that, looked around for about 20 minutes. And the doe came underneath me, and I was like, the hunter side of me was like, oh, I could totally just draw back and get a doe. I'm like, it's early. I'll let her go. I'm like, I know something's got to come through here at some point. And probably not even a half hour goes by. I see out of the corner of my eye on my east, a body. And I look up, and I had just missed to see what it was on, like if it was a doe or a buck. I just seen big body because the tree was covering its head.
Yeah. And
I looked at the body, and like, that's no doe body around here. So I'm like, that's got to be something at least with antlers, I'm hoping.
Right.
So I got my camera ready, I got my binos, and I'm looking, all of a sudden I see tall antlers. I was like, all right,
how far is this buck when you get sighted him at first?
He's probably about 45 to 50 yards.
Oh, so he's like more in the wheelhouse.
He's in the wheelhouse, but I'm in such tight timber with a little bit of opening that I had a lot of trees for cover. The way that I usually set up my platform is always try to keep the tree and the deer to where I would think they'd kind of come from in between, so I can try to use the tree as kind of cover, and or if I have to swing to one side or the other, just to kind of look like the tree,
keep it as a boundary between you.
Yeah. And so he's kind of scent checking the ground and kind of trying to figure it out. And I'm like, is he scent checking does, or is he somehow picking up my feet scent, like of just walking in?
Yeah.
And he's, checking up, looking around and stuff like that. And I'm like, all right, he's getting, curious. That's when I start grabbing my bow, and I'm just kind of watching him with the camera. And he starts coming my way a little bit, and then circles back around to the path that he had come. And it was that path, that deer path that those two bucks came through the night before that I'd sent the 2 days before that I sent them to the group.
Yep.
He came up from the other way, and to the wind to his face. And then he started to come my way, and I was like, all right, I'm like, it's game time. Like, come on, just like, let's do something. I noticed, like, I'm like, all right, this has got to be a 9 or a 10 point. I'm like, this is one of the bucks that I'm after that I don't have on camera, but I've seen him on the hoof. And so he's coming. He's probably 30 yards now, and he's still scent checking. And then we're to that point where we're getting snow flurries, but it's still melting as it's coming down. But we have probably 3-4 inches of snow. Yeah. So like the snow is melting off the trees, so it sounds like either a deer stomp or somebody walking.
Yeah.
So even you can hear my camera, like a snow falling off of a branch and hitting the ground. And then he like kind of sketched out and like almost he was on like high alert and almost was going to like turn back around.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was like looking around, scent checking, and then just kind of calmed back
Relaxed,
down a little bit. I was like, all right, because I almost got nervous that he was going to go back the other way.
Yeah.
And I'm just telling myself, come on, like let's you're getting in the wheelhouse here. As soon as he had to walk probably 15 more yards, and I could swing to my left, and I had like a base tree with like three trees splitting off. And if he would come in between those split trees, I had a clear shot broadside. And it was kind of a deer made path that walked 18 yards from where I was at.
Mm-hmm.
So he was in my wheelhouse if he would step into that shooting lane.
Yeah.
So as soon as he got into the first half of that split tree, I got my camera set, which I'll go into details that I totally messed up the shot on the camera, but I didn't care.
Yeah, you're not filming for outdoor
I
channels.
always sell film for fun. If I get it, great. If not, I don't care.
Props to you. I love when I film my hunts, but I hate taking the stuff, so I just don't with whitetails.
Oh yeah, I mean it's just I do it for fun. But as soon as he stepped in that first section of the tree, I swung around, got ready, and I got drawn back, and I'm kicking my face mask down with my first knuckle. Mm-hmm. So I shoot a thumb button release because I don't like taking my eyes off of the deer with I always had that issue with getting busted by like trying to focus on clipping my wrist strap, my caliper release on the D loop, and then I totally take my eyes off.
Yep.
So I found out I shoot better with a thumb button. Plus, it's a bigger piece just to grab onto without having to really look at.
Yeah.
I got anchored. I was able to pull my face mask down to get to my.
Sorry, I got sirens going by the one time that New Windsor has anything going on. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good, man.
I need to tell the whole town to just like turn off while we're recording, so they can respect what we do.
You just need to have the on air sign that's outside of the studio, just outside too.
That would bring us some problems, I think. I mean, people bugging us on purpose. People revving up. People already rev up Harleys and stuff when they drive by, hoping that we're recording. I'm pretty sure that's what goes on.
Oh, I'm sure.
But anyway, I got where you shoot the release. This deer's coming in. You're getting your camera set. All right. Sorry about the interruption there.
No, you're good, man. So I got drawn back. I was able to pull my face mask down so I could get the kisser button to the corner of my mouth, get properly anchored. And he just, got into the shooting lane, leveled out my sight. And he was slightly quartering too. So I didn't want to hug the shoulder and get into the shoulder. So I wanted to kind of get close to the shoulder, but not enough to hit the shoulder.
Yep, I know what you're saying. You're hugging as many vitals as you got available.
Yeah, without hitting guts. That was my biggest thing. And he stopped. Then he all of a sudden looked up at me, and I pulled a Ross Bigger, and I released. I said some Ross Bigger words in my head.
Yes.
I released. Boom, arrow zips right through the center of him. And the way he reacted was all like he arched his back and then mule kicked out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And he ran about 20-25 yards, stopped, looked around, tail tucked, flickered a couple times, and then just kind of trotted through the thick stuff. And that's all she wrote. I didn't see him. But
so you called me that night, right?
Yeah, I called you that night because I gave him time.
So what are you thinking when you see this in your head? Are you thinking good shot? Are you thinking Are you thinking, oh no, what, like, what, where are
Well, at
you
first
at?
I'm like, that's a great shot. You know, it was center body. You know, I tried to hug the shoulder as much as possible. It was maybe a little far back than I wanted, but it
Mhm.
was in that, that pinwheel as much as I could without hitting the shoulder.
Mhm.
And I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna at least not get down right away. I at least want to get down in about half hour just to check my arrow, just to see, because I knew it passed through him.
Mhm.
Um, and I got down at about a half hour, checked my arrow, no guts. I was like, yes, all right, no guts. I'm happy with that. Didn't smell. Good blood. It was a little dark though, and it had like how I talked to you on the phone. It was like that uh, filmy, clear material.
Yeah.
It was kind of white-ish,
Mhm.
but clear. But it wasn't covered in blood. I only had blood, on my white wraps and my white fletches.
Yeah.
And I sent you the picture of it, and you're like, "Oh, that was actually better than I thought it was going to
Yeah,
look."
it was better. The photos made it look way better than you explained it.
Yeah, I'm awful explaining it because I don't know what to look for at an arrow for the
Yeah,
most part.
you're being careful too, though. So
Yeah, and I didn't want to like keep bumping the deer, and then
yeah.
so I went up, at least walked up to the spot where he had stopped, which wasn't that far from where my arrow, where I had shot him. So
Mhm.
I felt safe at least going to that spot to kind of from there to there to see if I had any kind of blood. I had none. So that's when I went back to my truck. It was probably about 2 hours before I kind of went back to kind of, give him some time to look.
Yeah.
And I probably went another, maybe it wasn't even 100 yards. The more that I think about it, because it felt like 100 yards because I kept having to crawl through this thicket stuff of where he kind of went just to kind of look on the ground to see, because we had snow. So I was like looking for blood, but nothing. So that's when
Mhm.
we backed out. Then I texted you, "Hey, you busy? Can I call you?"
Yeah.
And then I talked to you, and then we had that game plan. And you're like, "Yeah, it's you said it was probably liver, maybe."
I would have guessed liver from the screenshot you sent me.
Oh yeah, because I sent you the screenshot of the DeerCast track.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
Um,
my guess, not knowing,
and
but
yeah, and that was my kind of guess of where playing through it, because I didn't look at the footage yet to even see
if you
where if I
got
would have
it or
caught the
whatever.
shot or anything.
Yeah.
Um, so I got back to the house after I had talked to you, and then the game plan was to basically, since no blood, body search tomorrow.
Yeah.
So which would be the 16th.
Yeah. Good thing you
So
filmed, man, because then, like, I don't know how long it was later, you get me a screenshot of the film, and I guess when I first talked to you, I didn't think about you having a camera.
I didn't, you know what? I didn't even think about it until I sent the video to Dominic, and
Yeah.
Dominic goes, "Dude, I know it's not that good quality that you sent me, but," he says, "look for an entry hole." I was like,
Yeah. That's all you need.
"Idiot." I'm
Yeah.
like, I didn't even think about it. I'm so worried. I'm like, I didn't even think about like looking for that. So I got
Yeah.
back on here on the big screen, and because I didn't catch the shot on film because I'm still new to the self filming. I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
ahead of where he
It's a pain.
was, but I caught him as he was leaving, and so I paused the video, and that's when I sent you that screenshot of where the entry hole was, and it was exactly where I had thought.
Yeah. Good eye, by the way.
Um,
And I
I was
thought
like,
liver. So from
right,
that, basically.
and so I was like, okay, well, between sending it to you, sending it to the whole WCB, our group chat and everything,
Mhm.
they're like, yep, liver, 100%, body search, tomorrow. So obviously didn't get much sleep that night, but
Yeah. Yeah. You never do.
yeah, I know. I had texted my boss and said, "Hey, I'm gonna have to look for this deer." He says, "That's fine. We're not that busy."
Yeah.
You
Shout out
know,
to your boss.
yeah, my boss is total. I always tell him not all heroes wear capes. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, So he's like, yeah, just come in the afternoon or whatever. Just take the morning to go look for him. I was like, okay, well, hopefully, I'll find him within
Yeah.
reason.
So at this point, did you have blood the next morning, or were you just planning on
had
body
nothing.
searching? That's crazy.
Yeah, because we had
the way your arrow looked. I thought you would have had some blood.
I would have thought. I thought I had something, but not a single drop. And we had lake effect snow at my house all the way up to the road of where my lease is at, and then it was just clear, nothing. Like
Really?
they got maybe a dusting, but it was like it went around the property.
You were just meant to find this deer then.
I swear, I think I was meant to. Yeah, I was like,
so how long did you body search for this buck then if you didn't have blood?
So it was, I got there around 8:00 because daylight was around just breaking first light at 7:30.
Yeah.
So I got there about 7:45 and then just started putting boots on the ground. I'm by myself because my buddy Matt, who's on the property with me, he was supposed to come and help me, but he called me and says, dude, my serpentine belt just broke on my car as I was getting ready to leave.
Yeah, go figure, right?
I was like, awesome, thanks, buddy. I said, well, it's all right, go fix that. No, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just gonna be searching.
Yeah.
I 40 plus acres, and I am still. It's 10:00, and I still have not found this deer.
No kidding.
And I've walked from one end to the other through the river and grandma's house we go. I went through everywhere and just could not find anything. And I thought, okay, maybe if I kept going back to where I, shot him, I could try to follow the hoof print.
Yeah.
Well, not on that property. I mean, we have so many does. We have so many other. It's like a highway.
Yeah, you have to be like an African tracker to do something like that.
Oh man, I was like, man, when Curt and them were talking about, when they tracked the everything that you guys shot, they didn't really look for blood. They just looked at the feet. Yeah. And I was like, I'm not that good.
Well, they're on sand and they can see like drag. Yeah. You're on frozen ground in Michigan. Yeah, it's a little different. But
yeah, so I was like, crap. So I texted my boss at like 10. I said, I'm like, no luck so far. I said, but I'll be in at noon and then I'll come back.
He's calling me. I wonder what's going on. I wonder if he killed something.
I wonder if he had found that.
I'll text him. We'll see. We'll find out. I just told him we're podcasting. So anyway, if we get an update for the end, we'll know if he killed one or not.
Yep.
So you're searching.
I'm searching. It's like 10:30. I'm like, I text my boss, hey, no luck. I'll be in at noon, but I'm gonna have to come back after when I get off work, and it's gonna be almost dark. He goes, just take the whole day. I said, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And it's like, and I'm still, searching, and then I'm like, I'm losing hope at this point. Like I felt like I've walked every part of this property. Did Lee shoot something?
Well, it's gun season in Illinois here today. And there's guys that hunt like right on my house, and my wife just said that it sounded like somebody shot our house.
Oh.
So waiting for Lee's update. Anyway. So
all right. Yeah. So, I'm still trying to find this deer, and I'm like having no luck. I'm losing hope, and it's noon, and I got on the phone with my uncle, and he had just shot an 8-point that morning, and he had to drag it out, and he's like, hey, you need help? I'm like, yeah, but I'm getting ready to, have, it's all right, because he's never been there before.
Yeah.
I'm like, no worries. I'll keep you updated. And I swear not 30 seconds after I had gotten off the phone with him, I took a couple steps, looked around to my left, looked straight, and all of a sudden I looked to my right, and I took a double take, and there he is, a deer laying right there around a little tree. I mean,
how many times did you walk by him, do you think?
I tell you what, I must have missed that small little pocket by probably 20, 30 yards. But if you went around that whole little area, you'd see boot prints all over that place.
Wow, that's crazy.
And I looked up, and he was just piled up. Like, he didn't bed down. He just
ran to his death, pretty much.
Ran to a little 2-inch tree.
Well, awesome, dude. You got him. That's awesome. Is he your biggest buck?
I was like, what?
Is he your biggest buck?
Biggest buck. I rough scored him because we're in the, the bow hunting league, and I rough scored him at 124 3/8.
Awesome, man. We had to do a remeasure because he's just shy of Pope and Young.
Yeah, I was gonna call you up here after a while and be like, hey,
get him through his drying period, whatever.
Yep.
And bring him up to the studio, and I'll put a tape on him. Well, that's awesome, dude. That's a whirlwind of a story of ups and downs of emotion. But I'm glad you recovered him.
That was awesome. And he was because we have a really bad coyote issue at our property. And
everybody does, man.
Yeah. Oh, it's, when my cameras were, live and stuff, it was like every night, every morning I'd have coyotes. I even had one on the center field, one at the other corner at the same time, and they were howling at each other.
I've had that too. You're sitting in the middle of them, and you're just like, what is going on? All right, let's see here. No messages from Lee. But somebody else shot one. I can't say who yet. It's excited. I'll tell you after we get done recording. Sorry. Okay. I'm getting messages. It's Deer 30 outside right now, so everyone's texting me right now.
I know.
I'll show you afterwards. I just can't say it on there.
But yeah, I literally just, I called my buddy Matt. I said, yo, I found him. He goes, no, you didn't. I said, yeah, I did. He says, okay, well, I'll take the wife's car then. He says, I'll come and help you. Cause I had a drag on my hands.
Well, you're exhausted from walking all day.
Oh, when I got home that evening, cause it took me 3.5 hours to get him out to the field, to get him out like into my truck.
Mm-hmm.
I got him a quarter away before my buddy showed up to help me the rest of the way.
And you get a deer sled or a deer cart or a side-by-side or a four-wheeler or something.
The problem is we have this 30 to 40 foot ravine that drops down and goes up that literally cuts the field and the property in half.
Oh, so that's a problem.
Get him through, like go down. Downhill is fine. It's the up part that sucks. And I almost need to borrow your hernia preventer 5000 winch just to winch him up the.
Yeah, that'd help.
Yeah.
Deer sled, deer cart, but I don't know, man. Here's the thing: if it would have been easy, that buck wouldn't. It would have still mean a lot, I'm sure, but it means a lot more now that it sucks. And you went into that spot to get a deer killed, and it worked.
Yep, so, I knew. I'm like, a deer's got to be worth the drag. But I know they're back.
About maybe shooting a doe in there.
She was making my trigger finger itch. All right.
No, you can't. You got to resist the urge.
I know. I did, but it was hard. She was tempting, but.
Well, dude, I'm pumped for you. I think it's awesome that you tagged out from going like the first time you came in studio and podcasted to have a buck stolen from you. Sift back to the library and check that one out too. Tagging out with a bow. It's pretty awesome, dude. So it's cool to see your learning curve get shorter and just kind of you notching the belt with some experience and some shots and hearing your stories, man. So,
man, it's, it feels like it's surreal. It's definitely it's definitely a dream season for me.
Yeah. So are you shoulder mounting both the deer from this year?
Yep. My first one's already at Old Barn. And this one will be going to Old Barn as well.
Awesome.
So I'm pretty pumped. I'm like you. I like my shoulder mounts, and I only got one. So
yeah, I mean, you got to start somewhere, man. You'll start piling them up. So you're tagged out, man. So you can kind of just relax and laugh at Doug and Eric battle over this chip that they're.
Yeah, I'm pretty. With them being pretty vague on this, man. I'm Team
Eric now. The podcast that launches later this week will reveal why I'm Team Eric. But I was neutral, but Doug just forced me to go Team Eric.
Yep.
So
Well, you gotta do what you gotta do, but
yeah,
I'm
you're
pretty.
kicking with your feet up, man.
Yep.
Uh,
And I'm gonna go out. I got some doe tags and here and there when I'm not gonna stress over it. I'm
just go out and have fun, which
Yep.
that's what it always should be. Where can
Yep.
people find you on the gram if they want to look you up?
Garett__ Goodwin. Garett is 1 R though. It's
I
GAR.
always type it with 2. I meant
I
to
know
double
you
check the
do.
podcast and
I
make sure
know.
when I put the cover art out that's not.
That's all right. I forgive you. I always tell people the lack of the R in Garett just makes up for my height. So.
Perfect, man. Well, thanks for sharing your story, dude. People are texting me. It's prime time right now, and it's just I don't know. Everyone vents all their hunting stories on me, even outside of the podcast, because I don't know, because I'm done. So I get all the play-by-plays, in the afternoon now. So, well, cool, man. Well, congratulations. I'm super pumped for you. We'll have all the pictures up and, of course, on the Working Class Bowhunter socials and all that, so you guys can see his deer and everything. So, man, you're killing it. I'm proud of you. I'm happy for you. And thanks for taking more. Well, you actually worked today, so your boss is probably liking it because we had to wait till after work for you to do this podcast. So,
yeah, I know. I had to. I told him, I said, hey, I have to leave at 5. Okay.
yeah, it's just like, I'm just like, dude, take your time. I'll be here. Well, cool, man. Well, thanks everyone watching and listening. Hope you're enjoying this series. We're bringing a lot more. If there's anything you want to see or hear or watch us do or talk about, whatever, throw it in the comments on DeerCast. We'll pull from there. But we appreciate the support on the series, and you know what to do. Go shoot a giant. We love you. Later.